also hi to everyone watching in the live stream. Today we're going to be talking about onboarding Web2 to Web3 via data unions. And my name is Marlene Ronstedt. I'm the co-founder of the Data Union DAO. And first of all, let me introduce you my fellow panelists. So first of all, we have here Matthew Rossi. He is my fellow co-founder at the Data Union DAO and also the director of product at Polygon. Then we have Keith. He is the co-founder of Republic DAO, which is leveraging the data union framework we're providing. So looking forward to hear more on that. And then we have two of these gentlemen from Demo, and we have Yev and Rob, who are both co-founders at Demo, which is another data union leveraging the abilities of data monetization in Web3. So before we're going to dive into things, I can maybe give you a quick overview of what data unions are and how people can use data unions to own their own data in the decentralized web. So traditionally, we don't have control over our own data. We know that Facebook and Google are monetizing our data and that there's very little opportunity for people to actually change that and to intervene with that. And the SDK that the Data Union DAO is providing basically tries to tackle that by introducing new models of data ownership into the Web3 ecosystem. And the premise here is basically that we're thinking that everyone has data, but not everyone has crypto. And this is how we think we can get the next billion users into the space. So maybe, first of all, let's hear from the guys from Demo down there, how they're leveraging the Data Union SDK and how exactly that interacts with what Demo is.
So a little bit of a background. I come from the connected car space and the self-driving car space. Spent a lot of time building solutions that send data to Palantir. And after watching it for 10 years, decided something was wrong and found out about Streamr. And they provide a lot of the core functionality that we need to allow someone to monetize their car's information, which is usually the second biggest purchase anyone makes. And much it, yeah.
Yeah, cool. And maybe Keith, you can also tell us exactly what Republic DAO is and how that interacts with the idea of data unions.
Yeah, Republic is a way for users to collect and control their own personal data. I think we all have different takes on it. Republics is kind of a comprehensive utopian idea where, whatever Google is doing to you, you can do for yourself, where you get to collect all the data that everyone's making money off of, and you get to see it first, you get to control it, and then you get to decide if and how it is shared. So, and it's early days, but we're using the data union framework to handle a lot of the heavy lifting as far as securely sharing and also distributing data back to the data providers, which is a thorny mess that the Data Union SDK takes care of.
And if I understand that correctly, the Republic app is already available, so people can already download that today and actually join that data union and start monetizing their data.
Yep, that's right. Play Store for Android and the App Store. Yep.
Cool. Amazing. Rob, maybe you also want to tell us a bit more how people can get started with Demo and how to interact with it.
Yeah, so we're a little bit earlier stage, but you can connect your car right now if it's a newer model and you have a software connection for your vehicle at app.demo.zone. Coming out with the web app soon, and we have a device that is on sale. It's currently sold out, but we're going to reopen the store soon that allows you to connect older vehicles.
Cool, that's really awesome. And how do you guys think that data unions can be instrumental in getting Web2, in general, the Web2 crowd onto the decentralized web? That question basically goes to all of you. Who wants to ever go first?
Yeah. I can start on that. So the kind of common theme here is that we want users to own their data, but if they own the data and all they can really do is give it back to a Facebook or a Google, it's not really enough. And data unions kind of allow users who control their data to kind of collectively negotiate how that data is used, and it gives more power to the users. So again, our whole thing, the core principle with Demo is ownership and having our users be the owners and being aligned with the platform. And the data union kind of makes that possible. Without it, it'd be a huge missing piece.
Yeah, and I would say the mental models for Web2 users might not be fully there as far as like what's coming their way to give them autonomy in sharing and controlling their data. And I think the data union framework allows you to use analogies like, okay, this is basically the Google infrastructure that they have, except that's personalized to you internally, where you can do the collection, you can do the brokering, you can do the sale, you can do the control, you can do the licensing, and that is very difficult to do, and so the data union framework kind of takes care of that.
Yeah, and I think the way we think about that is more generally as sort of like a quick start guide. So moving from Web 2 to Web 3 looks scary and hard if you haven't already been in the space. And we know like the Web 3 devs are like, they're an easy target, right? They're gonna get it. And when we think about the DAO, it's not only just technology, but also ecosystem and mentors and all other sorts of support that we can sort of layer on so that we can make that transition easier for teams. Yeah, so that's really what it's about from my perspective anyway, from a co-founder member.
Yeah. And Yev, I would be interested in hearing from you because you've been working in the automobile industry for the last 10 years, and you've been trying to educate automakers about the ability and the possibilities of Web3. And now it's actually the other way around, that these companies are starting to approach you guys. So how do you see sort of the on-ramp for these Web2 companies into the Web3 space?
That's a very good question. So we live in what I like to call surveillance capitalism. And the difference between capitalism and surveillance capitalism is you not only provide the data for product improvement, but it's used against you to drive your behavior. The car companies are very behind in terms of how quickly they move, but it gives us a lot of room because they also know there's something kind of wrong with the current model, right? They know that they're signing up their customers and selling the data behind the back, and eventually they know the chicken's going to kind of come home to roost, right? Which is, driving a lot of conversations that we've had to integrate this into an actual vehicle where, it doesn't have to be weird anymore where you're buying a car and also selling your entire life.
Cool, yeah, definitely. Keith, I'm also curious to hear from you what sort of inspired you to start Republic, because you have a background in journalism and you've been working for Wired, which probably covers a lot of story around like how data is being mistreated and mismanaged. So was that like an impetus for you to get started with Republic?
Yeah, definitely. That was kind of formative to my like tech utopian ideals, and I finally was in a position to make those materially real. And I think if we're talking about Web 2 to Web 3, I've noticed like a few salient points that a lot of people don't grasp, where even people within the space are maybe putting a guesstimate on what user data might be. And I've heard even like $50 to $60 a year or something, and I personally believe that to be almost UBI levels, like in today's currency, probably over $1,000 a month. And if it's fully an efficient market and everything is being shared as its users permit, so it's those sorts of things that kind of drove me to. I'm like, these numbers are way too low, and I think that's kind of indicative of the overall perception of the space, and that's something we definitely need to get through to the Web 2 users.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how much money at the end of the day these Web 2 users can make by like selling their data and monetizing it. Do you guys at Demo already have like some ideas of like how valuable that data is eventually going to be, or?
There is, to I guess let everybody know, there's already 2 companies that are in the space for the auto OEMs. Their names are Autonomo and Wejo, and they pay about $5 a month to the OEM for your data, right? So kind of the bar starts there. I think it's going to go much higher once we see self-driving vehicles, because they have video data, which can be used for a lot more use cases.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's also important to. Oh, sorry, Robin. Go.
I was going to say, and that's very siloed. It's hard. You can't develop applications on top of Wejo and Autonomo data the same way that you would be able to on top of ours. So hopefully, the more open platform makes that data more valuable. And then also, there's more than just the data. There's the connectivity to the vehicles as well, and vehicles will increasingly, and just devices generally, and IoT networks will communicate with each other, send payments to each other. There will be kind of a read and write. So really, it could go quite a bit higher in terms of the value on these vehicles.
Yeah, and just to wrap that up, right? What I think we're gonna find is that people that are willing to share one kind of data set are also gonna be very bullish to share other kinds of data sets. So it's not about just being in one union. It's once you've sort of entered the ecosystem as an end user, you're like, oh wow, I can share data with Demo, I can put that in my car, I can share data with Republic, I can join other data unions as they arrive, and that's how we envision our sort of flywheel, is every new data union in brings along with it a new participant pool from their vertical, but then those people get to see the sort of breadth of all the other projects and go, great, now I can join 2, 3 things, and now you really can start to make some real money at the end of the day, we hope, right? Yeah, so I think that's great.
Yeah, I think I'm also curious to hear from all of you guys how you kind of see the role of data unions in the bigger Web3 picture. Because we just had a talk about DeFi and onboarding more people into DeFi. And I think data unions can be another tool to really get a lot more people into crypto. And yeah, I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on that.
I was thinking about this earlier, and the data union framework can almost be thought of as the way that a token creates a community around it. So does a shared data set or data model among people, and so it's very it's community building, and it's very Web3 forward. And I think there's a lot of similarities between cryptocurrencies and properly encrypted data, as far as stacking different data types and almost not staking, but putting them in certain pools to provide value to other people. And so that's maybe a mental model we can leverage as people come in for crypto and DeFi, and then kind of understand how data moves in a similar way, where the mechanics are similar.
The way we think about it is everybody has data, not everybody has crypto, and I think there's gonna be a lot of reasons why people get into it, but I think a very simple one is, I want to own more of my data and control where it goes, and I think that's a very easy pitch to an average person that may not be into trading, for example, right?
And real quick, I think the one key component of that is the data union makes clear that, in my experience, the average person doesn't understand the value of their individual data. And it's true that their individual data is not worth much, right? If they could actually approach a seller, it wouldn't make sense. But the data union is that value add. It's yours with other people's is actually what the product is.
Yeah, maybe Matthew, you want to expand a bit on that point in terms of how the aggregation of data makes it valuable versus the individual data points are actually not that valuable at all.
Yeah, right. I mean, as soon as you start rolling things up and we get bigger and bigger numbers, then all the team's ability to sort of monetize that to larger and larger clients goes up, which means all the people that are contributing, start to see more and more rev shared out. And again, I think that's when we think about growing the ecosystem, and that flywheel of new projects spawns, brings more eyeballs bring more joiners into data unions, more and more data gets shared, and then we keep pumping that back into the ecosystem, right? Yeah, and that's why we're very excited about our DAO to DAO partnership with Polygon. And we think that will bring a new crop of developers and eyeballs to the project. And there'll be some other opportunities there that both DAOs are negotiating right now. But I'm happy to be able to announce that. And I think that's going to be beneficial to all the existing teams. And we're going to get some great new projects out of that and kind of keep continuing to grow the ecosystem. So that's super exciting as well.
Yes, definitely. I'm also really excited about that. Yeah, maybe. So if we look at this growing ecosystem, and if we think, okay, now we have like a handful of builders and DAOs in our ecosystem that are all kind of creating these new data unions. We have maybe 500,000 users in total by now. And how do you all think this is really going to go forward in the next 5 or 10 years? Like, do you think it's going to be normal to be part of a data union, or is this going to remain a niche thing?
Go ahead.
I think what's clear is that will be part of the fabric and the infrastructure of everybody's daily life. But whether they realize that or not, I'm not quite sure. Like how like explicit it needs to be. But this is like kind of part of that elemental infrastructure of if we are headed to utopia rather than dystopia, this is like something that needs to be there as a foundation. And whether my parents need to know what data unions are, or whether they just need to know that their data is like safe and secure and only shared in the ways that they want. I think that's an open question.
I think the bar is pretty low because with Facebook, I give them my data so they can make me angry and buy things I don't need. So people are willing to offer up so much with someone where their incentives are not aligned, where their data is subject to getting leaked all the time. There's no transparency. When they have the opportunity to monetize their data with a group that is aligned, that they can participate in and it's transparent, certainly seems like something that will get popular so long as they can be functional and effective.
Any thoughts from you?
I certainly. I mean, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I feel like this will be much more the norm. That far out. I think we will see people that will join many data unions, and I think when the data union itself thinks about tooling to provide to builders, I think about interoperability and maybe a wallet, and really thinking about end user experience, like what's it going to be like if I am in 7 different data unions and I'm using all those apps and I'm collecting all of these tokens, like then what can I do with it? And then we can take that to the next level. And I think you're right to think about abstraction too, like exactly, like most people have a hard time getting into crypto because it's still high friction to do that. And I think a lot of your apps are a much lower friction, and it's like, I share this thing, I start earning, and then we can start layering on the sort of crypto use cases after that. I think it's an easy way in though, and I think that's why we're excited about a new on-ramp to get people into the space.
Yeah, definitely. And what do you think are some use cases for data unions? So now we have they're both around more personal data use cases, Demo and Republic, but I think there is probably a lot more also when it comes to IoT devices, for example, or where do you think this could really take off the concept?
Oh, wow. I think every vertical is ripe for data unions. If you are a B2C app or a beta device app, you could be a data union. It's really about kind of shifting that mental model and thinking about it as a ecosystem and growing an economy. Then and that's what we're here to do, is to kind of help with those transitions, right?
Yeah, one use case that I'm actually really excited about is like refi. There's a lot of DAOs trying to buy real estate in order to preserve it and restore it, and part of that is like an auditing process, and you're going to need, whether it's cameras or drones or sensors on the property. Those are all, if those are valuable data streams, that can be another revenue source for those refi restoration projects and carbon sequestration. Yeah.
I think automotive data.
Of course you do.
The other one that we've seen, was one of the earliest crypto use cases was, web traffic browser data. Brave's basic attention token, some other things have come after that, obviously. And so that's obviously a very likely one as well.
And maybe to wrap things up, so you guys actually just raised 9 million, congrats to that, to build out Demo. And maybe you can just tell me what's going to happen next.
Well, we already launched the ability for you to add your car today via software connection. That's the first thing we're doing. We have a hardware device that plugs into the car that actually puts a wallet in the car, which we have a lot of future use cases for, but the simple version is you use that to collect your data and send it to the data union. And there's a lot more real-world kind of digital infrastructure built around that that's coming later, but at a high level, we're shipping a lot and making sure that it's a good experience for the users.
Yeah, the major priority is to connect as many cars as we can. It's going to be relatively centralized to start with a heavy emphasis on the progressive decentralization. We want to get a token in the hands of the community soon so they can control the network and kind of get bought in early on as we continue to take data streams that flow over AWS or something else and get them flowing over Web3 rails so that people can build on top of that.
Very cool. And what about you, Keith? What's next for Republic?
Well, we're focused on community building. Obviously, this doesn't work unless it's widely adopted, and we've kind of set the stage and the roadmap to be. I mean, this really doesn't work in a Web2 world. Like before Web3, I was researching co-ops and like shared ownership, but really you can't have the sort of universal adoption for the kind of data sets that are going to be the most valuable without users owning the network and deciding what happens with it and driving the software, which is all open source. And so it really needs to be transparent, and so we're just kind of grinding and iterating on that, and we're in it for the long haul. So be like short-term updates, and but when we do, it'll be significant.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds very exciting. Cool. I think we have time for one audience question over there.
From a technical perspective, like these smart contracts that operate data unions, they're basically efficient splitting contracts, right? Like they make it so you can pay out data union members with a single transaction, and that's basically all they are at this point. Like, what do you think are the next set of features for smart contracts for data unions?
Yep. So yeah, I think, like I said, like I think not so much about the smart contract specifically, but about just other tooling. Like we sort of approach it from wanting the teams they're in a vertical, they know their audience and who they're marketing to, and they've got their own roadmaps that are core, and that's the value that they're bringing, where we're trying to be just generic tooling infrastructure that any data union would be able to leverage. And then thinking about how to tie the whole ecosystem together at the end. We already have one data union buying data from another data union, value adding on top of it, and then remonetizing that data set, right? So we think about interoperability, we think about end user experience. I'm in like a bunch of unions and now I want to see my rolled up earnings and things like that. So anywhere where we can bring efficiency of the ecosystem, that'll be on our technology roadmap. We do have this concept of a proof of trust contract that we're thinking about, and that would provide all data unions an ability to sort of stake value into that contract. It would be governed by the DAO, and that would be our sort of like slashing mechanism if they move away from the principles of good data stewardship and we share value back to our ecosystem, things like that. So these are the kinds of things that are sort of high on our list of features.
Thanks.
Thank you.